Okay. Boy, I was doing a broadcast into space before. I didn't check to see if I had sound and picture, and it wasn't being broadcast. That was a waste of time. Let's see if this is being broadcast. No, something's not right. Let me reboot this and see what happens. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds till this gets up there. Wait for it. Meantime, I'll reboot this and see if I can clear in the cache like that. It does some good. Otherwise, I got a problem here. It says I'm live, so I think I'm live. The last time I don't remember it saying that, so. But let's make sure. There we go. Now it's right. Make sure I got sound and picture here. There we go. Now it's right. Okay, we're good. All right. While we wait for people to come in, I'm going to put a couple of quick posts up in the live stream. It's going to be hot today, 94, 95. I think then we start descending again. Boy, this heat just kills you here. And we've been very fortunate. I believe your prayers for cooler weather has worked, because the August I remember have many, many days considerably over 100, 103, 106, stuff like that. I'll be done in a moment. I'm just putting my email address up if anybody wants to send in prayer requests or toss requests or put a scripture up or ask me to cover a topic, which is fine as long as it relates to what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible believing site. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so we're on the 9th of September. It's a Monday, and it's currently 84 degrees on our way up to 96. Just a horrible day for weather. Tomorrow we go to 94, which is still quite bad. Wednesday 93, bad. Thursday 95, bad. Friday 93, bad. Saturday 88, 88 on Sunday 87. If that holds true, we'll be out of it, but we got another week of misery or something. It's so hard, you know. This is probably the most exciting, stimulating place you could live in the world, and it's, if not the hardest, for believers, it's probably the hardest place because of the spiritual stuff, you know. I mean, living in North Korea is going to be hard, but the spiritual stuff's not going on like it is here in Israel. It's a very hard place. You know, a lot of people, oh, I want to live in Israel, okay? When I came back a number of years ago, I was reluctant to return, and the Lord, let's say, had a light of fire on me, and I kind of got out of where I was, which was some crazy rat hole country, you know, like third or fourth world country, and I got out by the skin of my teeth, and I lost some vehicles that got stolen, and all kinds of problems. I didn't want to come because I lived there before. I knew what it's like. There's a scripture that says God's furnace is in Jerusalem. Yeah, it's in the Bible. It's like burning the dross out of you, you know. It's not going to be like that once we get redemption, but right now, it's a very, very, very hard place to live. Prices are high, rents are astronomical, housing prices are unaffordable, the government's like your enemy, the neighbors are your enemy, America's really our enemy. You know, it's just terrible living here. But that's where you need to be. That's where I need to be, so I came. But don't think it's a great party living here. Oh, you'd be wrong. No, I have some nice things about it. We have peace, we have tranquility. I have a yard I could sit out in, and, you know, assuming the weather. So many months of the year you can't use the yard. The weather's so horrible, you know. But some of the time you can. I tried rigging up a big tent I bought on Amazon to see if I could sit out in the rain. It was a ventilated tent. I get outside during the rainy season, and the wind kept blowing it over. I couldn't stake it because we have the wood chips for the ecosystem for things growing in the yard, so I couldn't do it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to try to figure something out. I might be able to tie a tarp. I doubt that. Probably won't do much good. I don't know what to do. You know, this was a big walk-around tent that 6 or 8 people could sit down in there and have a meal. You know. It's difficult to figure out how to do that. I wish I could. So I don't have to stay indoors in the cold, rainy season. A couple of years ago, I had bought a battery-operated fan. I'd go sit outside in the heat and blow the fan on me, but the fan was like a 9 or 10-inch fan. It wasn't that effective. And it only lasted maybe 45 minutes, so it wasn't so great. It's rough out there, you know. And in the summer, don't even try. It's so uncomfortable. The only way I could see living in Israel with temperate climates is in the summer, you get yourself a place where there's elevation. and it's cooler. Like Jerusalem is 2,500 feet up, so usually your highs are in the 80s. And Jerusalem has very little humidity. Now, you don't live in Jerusalem. You could live in one of the neighboring communities 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 miles away or something. And we used to turn on a swamp cooler. I lived right outside of Jerusalem years ago. I think I was about 2 miles or 3 miles. And turn on the swamp cooler, which is cheap to run, at about 11 o'clock. No, I don't know if it was, I turned it on at 9, 10 in the morning till about 11. And it got so cold in the house, I had to shut it off. And then about 3 in the afternoon, I had to turn it on till about 5 in the evening. And that would keep the whole place cool all night till the next morning. The winters, you could get waist deep snow in Jerusalem, so you don't want to be there for the winter. You want to be in a lot for the winter, where you could go swimming during the winter if you got really kind of need a heated pool, because it doesn't get that warm. It might get 70, 72 or something like that, but you know, you don't get all that horrible rain, and you can sit outside and you got sunlight, you know. Well, you have to be extremely wealthy to have 2 houses and shuttle back and forth, but that's the way to do it. You could also move to Safed, which is on the other side of the Galilee for me. And it too is about 2,500 feet up a mountain, and it's cool in the summer, but it's full of ultra-Orthodox and Kabbalah, so it's not a great idea. You could move in the Golan Heights to a higher elevation there, but there's nothing to do there. You're in the middle of nowhere. What are you going to do? You know, that's not a great idea. I'm thinking Caesarea, maybe you could make work. Oh, I know. You could live in Nahariya, which is a beautiful beachside community, 7 miles south of Lebanon. So right now it's a bad idea, but it's gorgeous beaches, and you're right on the Mediterranean, so you're not going to get that hot. Sea breezes. See, the ground heats up, the trees heat up, people's air conditioners blow hot air out, the cars heat up the streets and blow hot air. But when you live on on the sandy beach, there's nothing that's doing that, and the water doesn't do that. So you stay pretty cool. So you could go to Nahariya for the summer and go to a lot for the winter. That would work. And then you would enjoy Israel more. See, if you're a Satan-bought false preacher and you've got an income, let me tell you something. You see these guys, they got 800,000 subscribers, they got 1.5 million, 2 million. They get, 100,000 views on their videos, 300,000 views. These guys are making at least $500,000 a year. Some of them are taking in, well, they got expenses, but some of them are taking in $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million. Well, they have a few staff members they're paying, $3,000, $4,000 a month to, and they got a studio and they got this and that, but these guys are getting wealthy. And that's because they sell things. I can't sell anything because of the scriptures. Freely you have received, freely you shall give. They don't care about the scriptures. So they sell stuff. Oh, the Lord gave me this great revelation about end times in Israel and Europe, and I'll share it with you in my book. It's only $29.95 plus shipping and handling. If anybody ever had an anointing from the Lord, which I believe these people never did, they would never be able to write a book. The conviction from the Holy Spirit would stop them. And if they pushed through and did it anyway, their anointing would be gone. God can't back up somebody that breaks his word. So the guys with the books, the DVDs, selling you music, having prophecy conferences where you buy a seat, having music conferences where you you get a ticket to attend. All this stuff is making merchandise out of God's people, period. You can't debate that. There's no ground to stand on. And it's wrong. And that's how they make their money. They make you think that you're going to gain some great spiritual, prophetic, biblical insights as to what's going on if you pay them to buy their book or DVD or go to their conference, and they'll share with you what they allegedly know. You're not going to get anything out of those people worth a hoot. Nothing. Arabic I take down because people come in here and curse us in Arabic, so I don't let, if you're going to write in a foreign language, I might take it down. I don't know why they call me Stan Lee. I'm not even sure Stan Lee was a movie producer or something. I don't even know who the guy is. Israel's going to attack Hezbollah shortly. They've been severely disabled, and Israel's trying to secure the West Bank better. Hamas, ISIS, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and miscellaneous terror groups are in the West Bank, causing lots of problems, particularly in Nablus, Hebron, and Jenin. And we're routing them out and having shootouts with them, which they provoke. And we're finding their weapons supplies, and that's going to keep going for a while. Because when we invade Hezbollah, we're planning on getting uprisals from lots of these lovely terrorist groups. Yesterday, a guy came in with a truck from Jordan. For some reason, he got through Israeli border patrol and Jordan, and he had a rifle, and he killed 3 Jews before he got killed. Quite tragic. So we closed all our border crossings with Jordan until further notice. Jordan is starting to turn against us, which is Ammon and Moab. It's on its way. Hamas, we have control of about 52% of Gaza. And they can do precious little against us at this time. We can go 10 days without a missile launch, a week easily. They try to engage our soldiers, but they don't do very well. We've destroyed a massive amount of tunnels in the south of Gaza and Rafah going into Egypt that we used for all kinds of smuggling. And it looks like we got rid of them. It may still find more, I don't know. And what we're going to do with Gaza remains to be seen. What the military proposed was to go into South Gaza, particularly Rafah, tell all the civilians to evacuate up to North Gaza, and screen them with checkpoints, stop Hamas from coming through, and use metal detectors to stop weapons. And then when they're up there, close off northern Gaza. You know, give them serious warning for 2, 3, 4 days to leave. If they don't leave, it's on their head. And then in South Gaza, you cut the internet, you cut the phones, you cut the water, you cut the electric. You stop the food and the water from coming in, and you just wait for a surrender. That's it. It's the most humanitarian thing you could do. If they don't want to surrender, they could just starve to death or dehydrate. What did they do to our witnesses that they killed a few hours before we came in? They killed 6 of them. They riddled them with bullets. The autopsies revealed they were being starved and dehydrated. You're dealing with psychopathic serial killers. Death is everything to them. Okay? They love killing. They love killing each other. They love killing foreigners. They just love death. It looks like Biden's given up on a peace treaty. Hamas added new things into the deal the other day that are so absurd Biden won't even ask Israel to comply. So they don't want peace this way. If they submit to Israel, they're all going to be unemployed because Israel will keep soldiers there, make sure they can't smuggle weapons, so they can't attack us. They can't do anything to us. So why would Iran keep paying them? How much does it cost to support 25,000, 30,000 of them a month? A lot. A lot. Iran will fire them. They won't support them anymore. And they know it. Now they're stuck in Gaza. They got no paycheck. If they're the rich ones, the leaders, they're fine. They're millionaires, even billionaires. If they're not, they're going to have to go get a job. To just get the debris out of Gaza using 100 dump trucks a day would take 2 years. They use 200 dump trucks a day, it takes a year. They use 400 dump trucks a day, it's 6 months. Where are they going to get 400 dump trucks from? Go to Dump Trucks or Us? Where are they going to get them? Getting 100 would be tricky. That's not reconstruction. Reconstruction will take 15 years and $750 billion. If Netanyahu decided he would pay him that, he couldn't. That's a joke. One thing Netanyahu did do is he busted the place up geographically or physically so much that it makes him wonder why that anybody would want to stay there. It also, and don't think Netanyahu doesn't think this way, it stops Israel from going in there and occupying it and fulfilling Bible prophecy. Gaza is a very nice place. It has weather they say is sort of kind of like Hawaii. Not exactly, but it's similar. Now they contaminated the beaches. You know, you have to clean the sand and all that. But, you know, we could do that. They live like pigs down there, even without wash. They don't pay much attention to sanitation. And, you know, it's a bloodthirsty people. So after the Jordan guy killed 3 Jews in Israel, the Jordanian people, we have videos of it, I put it on my Telegram, we're out in the streets handing out chocolates and candy because they're saying how sweet it is. And they're praising this guy. He's dead, but they're making a martyr out of him, you know? He's in paradise with 70 virgins kind of deal, you know? So, a couple of weeks ago, the king of Jordan went to Iran. And this could be tied together. So Netanyahu comes out with a statement yesterday and says, the status of the Temple Mount is not going to change. And I don't want any minister in the government going up to the Temple Mount before getting my explicit permission. No. Netanyahu doesn't fear Jehovah, nor does he respect him. So he's afraid of causing more uprisals. And Netanyahu's dedicated, Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the heathen until the times of the heathen be fulfilled. Well, Netanyahu is dedicated to keeping the heathen there by his actions. It's one of his big priorities. So, we ain't going to get any Bible fulfillment of prophecy from Netanyahu, that's for sure. So we think that Biden and his team have thrown in the towel on the negotiations with Hamas. They haven't stepped out and said 100% we're finished, but it looks that way. Blinken's coming to the Middle East this week. I don't know what day. He's not here yet, but and we need to see what he does when he gets here. He's a relatively ineffective Secretary of State who's pretty bad at it. Hezbollah is shooting about 100 short-range Katyusha missiles into the border of Israel every day. plus a very small amount of drones. And Netanyahu can't return 80,000+ people that live near the border back to their community for many months now. The only way that's going to work is to shove into Lebanon and set up the UN mandate, which means Hezbollah shall not be south of the Litani River, which is about 17 miles from the border. The Lebanese government won't enforce it, and the UN troops won't enforce it. So Israel would have to occupy. Now, if Hezbollah could not attack Israel, Iran won't pay them any money either, and they're out of work. And they know it. I think Israel wants to see tighter controls in Gaza and the West Bank for sure rooted out. And then they'll go into Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Houthis are saying they've finished training thousands of soldiers that are going to come up to help in Gaza, help the Palestinians, help Hamas in Gaza fight Israel. They could come into Gaza from Egypt using the Rafah crossing, except we got soldiers there and we got airplanes in the air, so how does that work? See what I'm saying? Let's say they incursion through Saudi Arabia and then enter through Eilat. There's soldiers there, which means aircraft show up with bombs and missiles. But we'll pick them up moving there. And we'll blow them up and stop them. I don't know how they're going to get in. The best move would be to go up to Jordan and come in through the Jordan border or the Syria border. But that's heavily protected. You see, today, there's no such thing as a sneak attack. Like in World War II, they did some big invasions, America did. And they had hundreds of warships and troop carriers and hundreds make a massive convoy across the Atlantic. Okay. And they hit parts of Europe. Huge. And they weren't detected till they were very close. But today, that's not the case. They get detected. You got reconnaissance planes, drones, every crazy thing, radars. The Houthis can't do a sneak attack. Maybe they're going to go to Lebanon. I don't know. Turkey is still calling for the Arab states to unite against Israel. He previously said that we should raise a 5 million man army and just wipe Israel out. This is a NATO member. And did anybody throw him out of NATO after he advocated wiping out Israel? No. Nobody said anything. You think NATO likes us? They never took Israel in as a member of NATO. They didn't want to come defend Israel if she got attacked. They don't care about Israel. They don't like Israel. Most of the UN recognizes a Palestinian state. But they don't get what they want. Things don't go the way they want them to. Okay. A tabernacle is basically a portable temple that could be folded up and traveled. Tabernacle also could mean a tent that you live in. We get Weisenheimer's in the chat. Tossed salad. That's a good remedy. All right, let me go into my notes. I made notes about this. Let me get into it. So last night we conducted the biggest raid in Syria in about 6 years, 15 targets. We hit an Iranian chemical weapons factory inside Syria. We blew it up. People got killed. So Iran was building chemical weapons inside Syria, obviously to kill us. I see we have a prayer request here for PC, Papa Charlie, PC, Papa Charlie. Prayer request the Lord would keep the appliances running or provide money to replace them. For Papa Charlie, PC, that the Lord would keep the appliances running or provide funds to replace them. Russia is now sending drones into Latvia and America and Romania, crossing their borders. Now, these are not weaponized drones. Typically, they're spy drones. And NATO insists that the NATO members don't attack, just drones that are not attack drones. So they're afraid to do anything about it. NATO doesn't want to trigger a war with Russia over this. Pretty stupid, but Romania and Latvia are sticking to the NATO doctrine because they don't want to be caught in no man's land if they break it, and then NATO washes their hands of them and they wind up fighting Russia themselves. So they go along with the NATO doctrine. And then Ukraine threatened Iran and said if any of the weapons, the missiles you gave to Russia kill any of Ukrainian civilians, we're going to pay you back double. And I don't know how Ukraine would accomplish that. That is pretty hard to figure out, really. But he's probably got a way to do it. He's got special forces soldiers. He's got a lot of resources. Then Israel threatened Russia and said they would put Israeli long-range precision ballistic missiles into Ukraine to be used against Russia. So I'm sure Biden approved of that. And that will give Putin confusion. He won't know what to do about this. He's been provoking Israel over many years, but now Israel's trying to take action against him by arming his enemies. Which basically, Putin gives weapons to some of these terrorist groups anyway, so it's a similar thing. Trump says he's in favor of legalizing marijuana in Florida. I don't know why he's worrying about Florida. Trump says he is going to vote yes. Oh, of course he lives in Florida. I'm looking for the recent news updates from social media in Hebrew, Arabic, or whatever. A lot of the sites in Israel get it from the Arabs and then put it up in Hebrew or put it up in English. There's a lot of people here that have fluency in Arabic. You can machine translate too. I do that also. Yeah, they've been having celebrations in Jordan. Jordan's going to turn on us real soon. else we got here? Let's see. Oh, they're saying that the failure with the negotiations is going to lead to pretty quick, to escalation, I think, pretty quickly. Let's see, Syria. Last night's Syria attack was 43 wounded and 14 dead. That's a pretty serious amount of casualties. Here's the weapons factory, chemical weapons. You can see the picture. It was pretty enormous damage. I think Bashar Assad, the head of Syria, is still in Russia. I think he ran away. Oh, we know he went to Syria with to Russia with his family, and we believe he's hiding there because he knows something's going to come. Because Iran's crawling all over the place there in Syria, and he knows something's going to come, and he doesn't want to be there and get killed, so he's hiding in Russia. Well, he's just a dumbbell figurehead, not highly relevant or anything like that. Okay. See if I got any questions in the chat. You know, what the church never teaches is year of recompenses, year of redemption, day of vengeance, yet it's all in the Bible. And I just want to give you a little more clarification on Isaiah 61, which, I keep thinking about this, and this is one of the things that I don't think we're going to solve because we're not supposed to know the day of the hour. It's also quoted in the New Testament. It reads, Isaiah 61:1 reads like this: "The Spirit of Adonai Yehovah is upon me." This is Yeshua. "Because Jehovah has anointed me to preach good tidings to the meek. He had sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Jehovah and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn." So the acceptable year means the pleasurable year. And it's associated here with the day of vengeance. Now, we go to Isaiah 63. As soon as I stop going to Jeremiah, I'm going to go to Isaiah. Okay. Isaiah 63. "For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of redemption is come." So now it's tying the day of vengeance to the year of redemption, which is not a precise literal year. It's not Shana, it's Shanat. So it's like, it says, "You shall pick a lamb of the first year." So let's assume the first year starts when the lamb is more than 12 months old. So you could pick the lamb of 13 months, 15 months, 17 months. You get the idea? That's a Shanat versus a Shana, which is a literal 12-month year consisting of 12 30-day months in the Hebrew biblical calendar. So, before we read this, we read, "Who is this that cometh from Edom," that's Yemen, "with dyed garment from Bozrah, this that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength? I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garment is like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me, for I will tread them in my anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be spotted upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come." Could this be the destruction of all the nations in Jeremiah 30:11, that he dispersed the Jews into, of which Edom or Yemen is one? It could be. Likely is. So this makes us think, okay, the acceptable year and the redemption year. It makes me think, because the acceptable year is when every man's returned to his inheritance, his land, his house, if you put it up for Hawk, and every man is reunited with his family if he sold himself as a servant. And this is, reminiscent of, strongly reminiscent of a Jubilee year and also redemption. So one could come to the conclusion that the acceptable year is a Jubilee year, and the year of redemption will occur in a Jubilee year. which would be very appropriate. However, can I prove that to you? No, I can't. Am I sure it's correct? No. Does it look pretty good, like it might be correct? Correct? Yeah. But you can't prove it. Why didn't the Lord say the Yovel year or the Jubilee year? Well, he kind of did by saying acceptable year, which is the pleasant year, but it also could be a year of redemption. Now, the year of redemption is a one-off event, and it too is using the word should not, isn't it? I better check. Won't take me long. I'll just go into the Hebrew. Year of my redeemed. I think it does, but it won't take long to check. I'll go open up the Hebrew Bible. Verse 4. Shanat. Yeah. It says and Shanat. Verse Shanat and year. Shanat. Okay, so the year of redemption, again, does not necessarily have to be a 360-day biblical year. The year of Jubilee, year of Yovel, does have to be a 360-day year. So things are not such a great match. So when it says the acceptable year, it really means the pleasurable year, and that can really mean redemption, which is pleasurable. So the day of vengeance is also tied to the year of redemption. Or recompenses, rather, a year of recompenses. The payback year, punishing for their evil. So you see this plain as day in Isaiah 34, verse 8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. It's all about Israel, and this is also a Shanat year. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the acceptable year. In Isaiah 61 and see if it says Shanat. I think I did that already. Let's see. No. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. Okay, let's go in and see what that word for year is in the Hebrew. It's in verse 2. 1, 2. Shanat. And the word for acceptable is ratzon, Strong's number 7522, which means delight. Acceptable is too weak on that translation. Delight would be pleasurable delight, okay? And then, because it says Shanat, I don't think it means a Jubilee year. I don't think that Jubilee year would use the word Shanat because it's a precise calendar year. So this makes me think that he's just referencing the redemption here. So if it was meaning a Yovel Jubilee year, then we know it would start someplace in mid or late February in 2025. And we would be able to probably get very close to knowing the day or the hour year of redemption starts when Yeshua appears in the clouds like lightning from the east to the west, seated on the right hand of power, which is God the Father. And then Revelation 1:7 tells us that every eye shall see him. And then John 6:40 says, if you're a believer and you look upon him, you will have everlasting life. And that's what happens to the Israelites in Zechariah 12:10. He pours his spirit out on them, which means they're believers, and then they look upon the one whom they have pierced, which is Yeshua in the clouds, and they have everlasting life, which does not mean you're immortal. Immortality comes when you get into New Jerusalem and you eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life, because it says there's no death in New Jerusalem. But everlasting life means you live a long time, like they did before the flood, only since we get a double portion, it'll be longer. But we just need it to be long enough to make it into New Jerusalem, don't we? So it says, my people's days will be like that of a tree, which could live 2,000-3,000 years old. A child shall die 100. Well, that's the explanation for these things. Speaking of old, my wife went down doing some agricultural work the other day, and she was in the south, and these people, I told her this a few months ago, discovered a tree. It's a date palm tree, and they had a lot of scientists and experts look at this tree, and they dated it back 2,000 years. And it's still living. So she was there talking gardening and architecture and stuff like that with him. And the guy gave her a pit from this 2,000-year-old date palm, which is a seed, and told her, here, go plant your own. So now we're going to plant a date seed from a 2,000-year-old tree. I expect it'll take a long time to produce any fruit, so. But it is just interesting and fun, you know. So I would say let's downplay this being a Jubilee year. I'm not seeing it. If it was, we would know, because you could tell from scientists roughly when the new moon sliver is going to appear in the sky, usually within 1 to 3 days. So you wouldn't maybe know the exact day that Yeshua would appear, but you might get awful close to it. And I don't think we're supposed to get close to it, that close. You see, if, let's say, the new moon sliver was supposed to appear on February 20th. I'm just making this up out of thin air, okay? And on February 20th, people went to look at it with the naked eye, and the illumination intensity was too weak to see it throughout Israel. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just not getting out to the store. Your breakfast is on the table.
All right, thank you. So they would sit there and say, well, it didn't make it tonight, we'll make it tomorrow. You see, they would be very accurate. And then, you know, with the moon, it would be rather accurate, because my wife mostly, and me a tiny bit, have been spotting the new moon in Israel. I haven't done it in years, but I used to go with her. A lot. And, you know, if it doesn't have enough illumination on the first projected night, it's going to make it on the second night. So you're going to get to a position where you're going to know that's the day, And that's the day Yeshua is going to appear in the clouds. And now you know beforehand what day he's going to appear. And you would even know the hour. And that can't be. So my theory about we might have to wait until February for the new moon to kick into year of redemption, I never gave it as a solid theory. I just proposed it, by the way. It's a possibility. I would say it's I wouldn't expect it at all. The nations surrounding us are moving into place pretty quickly. It may by no means take until then. I'm going to take a fast break for a minute and come back and we'll look at Zechariah 12 and nations and try to get a picture. And as we get that picture, I'll show you the difficulties in trying it. We'll try it, but I'll show you the difficulties. See, there's two events with Yeshua, and the church doesn't teach this. One is the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, and that's the beginning of the second 70 of Daniel. That's the day that the moon is going to turn to blood and the sun is going to go dark. At the end of Gog and Magog is the end of the tribulation also. And that's the return of Yeshua to earth when the beast and the false prophet get thrown in the lake of fire. Now, what beast and false prophet and talking statue and mark of the beast and stuff is running around now? Nothing. Okay? Yet Zechariah 12's been going. The Lord showed me on August 10th, 2023, he told me we're in recompenses. So August 10th didn't close it out, but because the Shanat word, it could run some more months, but it may not happen in February. It may happen in March or April next year, but I don't think so. I think the connotation of the word means it's about a year. But like I said, with the lamb could be a lot older, If you want to take the position that a lamb in the first year means that the lamb's not a year old, it doesn't make sense, because then you could be sacrificing a 1-month-old lamb, and that doesn't sound right, because the mother would go into extreme mourning. See, when the lamb's a year old, it's finished with the mother, and the mother forgot about it, like a dog, A dog that's a year old is not one of the children to the mother, even if it remains living in the same house as her. It's not a child to the mother. You know what I'm saying? A baby dog bothers the mother. The mother's not going to go down on bite the dog and hurt the dog. But, a 14 or a 12-month dog is like a stranger. You bother me, I'll bite you. This doesn't work that way. So, I heard red alerts, and now I'm hearing sirens. But I didn't hear a red alert in my neighborhood, in my area. I heard it on the phone, so it could be anywhere in Israel. It's probably coming from Lebanon. So I can't tell you when all this is going to happen, okay? I don't know. But we can look at the pieces. Jordan is starting to turn against Israel. You see, Zechariah 12, what it tells us is it describes the war. It's a siege more than a war, okay? A siege is typically not an invasion, okay? So it's Zechariah 12, and this is ignored by the church because the two witnesses appear in Zechariah 12. But if we just jump into verse 2, it says, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling." And the word for cup is probably meant more like a basin or a watering trough or a big container that many people could drink from at the same time, not a teacup. But they don't, that's their translators. Trembling means fear, shaking, unto all the people round about. So the ones that are shaking are the people round about, the enemy, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Now, to lay a siege or surround round about Jerusalem, this is Jerusalem. This is the West Bank that wraps around Jerusalem on the north, south, and east. And we're seeing trouble in the West Bank now. And we're seeing trouble from Jordan. Jordan has holes in the fence with Israel, which goes to the West Bank. And they might just push through and start helping the terrorists in the West Bank that we're putting in jail, engaging in gunfights and killing and all that, and breaking them up and taking their weapons. And they may just push through. This guy sneaking in and killing 3 Jews probably psyched them up, And they could push in and come at Jerusalem. Now, I told you the other day that back on July 19th, the International Court of Justice made a decision that Israel has no right to be in the West Bank or in East Jerusalem or in Gaza, that they have to evacuate out of the West Bank, and they can't keep troops in Gaza. Once the war is over, they can't occupy it, and East Jerusalem is the same. It does not belong to Israel. East Jerusalem is where the temple will go. So Satan is trying to put the control of East Jerusalem in Muslim hands, who will fight to defend it. So the International Court of Justice cannot, by itself, take action and say, okay, UN troops go to Israel. They can't do that. What they can do is go to the Security Council and make a case and a suggestion or a recommendation or whatever to the Security Council to put military into, say, the West Bank and run the Israeli people out. They said that they have to evacuate the houses in the West Bank. And they could do it in East Jerusalem too, like Gilo and other communities are considered East Jerusalem that these people live in. So they could run them out, okay? So that's the deal. And that might go to enforcement, and Biden may be mad at Israel for something. It doesn't take much for him to get mad at Israel. And he could either abstain, in which case it would go through, or he could vote for it. In which case the UN would raise a number of troops to come and get Israel out of these places, which could mean surrounding Israel for some reason to put pressure on it, like you can't get anything in and out, you can't bring anything in, you can't sell anything, versus going in and trying an all-out destructive war. Or it may never happen, and it may just be the Arab states surrounding us that lay siege. Or it could be both. It could be both. You see, Greater Israel, the land that we get, it's rather confusing to understand all this. We get the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, okay? We get west of the Euphrates, which is most of Turkey, a lot of Iraq, and a lot of Syria. We get Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen. But a lot of these places just get destroyed. So what do we do with them? Well, we'll have it, but I don't know how we're going to live there right away. I don't know. You see, prophecy tells us the way something will start and the way it'll end, but we don't get the dots and the dashes, and we don't dot the I's and cross the T's, and we don't get all the little pieces. And you could always expect unusual, unexpected twisting and turning and changing of events. He doesn't want the nations to know what's going to happen. So, the Goyim nations. I'm thinking. So, Jeremiah 31, all the nations he scattered the Israelites into are going to be destroyed. People are going to have to leave. Well, he scattered us into Syria and Iraq, and we've been in Turkey. We've been in Egypt, we've been in all of Europe, everything in Europe. We've been in everything in North, South, and Central America, and probably most of the Caribbean, and we've been in parts of Asia. And in Africa, parts of Africa. Like, for instance, we've been in South Africa. A lot of Jews went there. We had some family there. My uncle went and visited them. They had a shoe factory. See, America wasn't the place to live, let's say starting around 1900 to 1975 or 1980 or something like that. South Africa was the place to live. If you were white. Of course, if you weren't white, America wasn't a good place to live either. So in South Africa, they had tremendous natural resources. The kids would go to college and they would study mining and agriculture predominantly. Like in America, kids would study accounting, teaching, engineering, stuff like that. There it was, yeah, they had engineers too. They had civil engineers building stores. So they had a lot of wealth coming out of the ground. Gold, minerals, they had everything. And great farmland. And they exploited the black residents to use for cheap labor, and they had apartheid and everything else. And, America was not a racially equivalent place, believe me, in 1900 to 1975. Don't think it was. It really wasn't. And, so people say, oh, America was, no, I think South Africa was better. You had beautiful beaches, you had beautiful land, you had all those animals, you had a lot of stuff going for you, and they became wealthy. And then it got all destroyed, it was Nelson Mandela, and they got everything messed up, and now it's falling apart. They're reversing. The whites were mean to the blacks, and now the blacks apparently are taking over and not so nice to the whites, and the farmers have a lot of trouble and stuff like that. Kenya went through this. They had the Mau Mau rebellion. When? 50s, I think, 40s, 50s, probably the 50s. It was so bad that when people went to sit down with dinner, eat dinner, the women kept a gun in their apron at the table or in their dress if they had a pocket, and the men would have a gun on them when they sat at the table. Because these guys would sneak up on the farmhouses, the black people, and break in with machetes. But before you knew it, the door would be kicked down and they'd be on you in 1 or 2 seconds. So you didn't have time to go get a gun. You could reach into your pocket and boom, 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 stuff like that. That would work. So they had a terrible time. That was another place where they were oppressing the people. Uganda had that idiot Idi Amin, and they had a lot of trouble over there. So Zimbabwe, Rhodesia was another place that was a great lifestyle, but you got to remember the blacks were being persecuted like in America, And before the blacks were being persecuted, they were persecuting the North American Indians. They were always persecuting somebody. Or they began to persecute the Chinese laborers that came over there to build the railroad. They started persecuting them. So America was always persecuting somebody, So, Zimbabwe or Rhodesia had great farmland, and they didn't have the natural resources as much as South Africa, but they had them. And they were easily, it was easy to make a good living. You can easily get 500, 1,000 acres or 5,000 acres or whatever, get a massive piece of land, Taxes weren't bad, prices were low, labor was available. But when you look at the whole thing, all these countries were racist. South Africa probably had the top tier for having it easy and a standard of living and stuff like that. You know, there was a lot of Dutch people there, but there were Jews there. They didn't seem to take much issue with the Jews. I'm sure they didn't accept them, but they were content with their hatred towards the blacks, so they didn't need to vent on the Jews. They had plenty of black people to be miserable too. So you had them sprinkled through there. Mexico is loaded with Jews even to this day. Lots of Jews were leaving Europe pre-World War One from the Tsars' pogroms from Russia and stuff. They came from Poland and different countries, and they couldn't get into America because of a quota. So somebody said, well, just go to Mexico, it's next door. They didn't know. They were country bumpkins from East Europe with not much of any kind of education at all. And they say, oh, all right, I'll go to Mexico, And they went to the Mexico of 1908, 1910, stuff like that. And they didn't have drug cartels and gangs and stuff like that in Mexico. They had banditos, criminals, had different kinds of gangs, cattle rustlers left over from the 1800s. And, they had stuff going on, but it wasn't anything like today. So they went there and mostly went into the cities like Mexico City and the big cities, and a lot of them established themselves and did make a good living. I know Mexican Jews today that live very well in Mexico, and they like it. I can't stand the place, but they like it. So, they live, you have a nice big house on a nice patch of land with a fence, and you have 1 or 2 or 3 servants, and it's not so cheap to live there, and it's not my cup of tea. I mean, they got highways in Mexico City that are 16-lane highways. You never saw anything like this, 8 lanes each direction. I think there's 16 million people who live there. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Who the heck would want to be, really like that? I spent some time in Mexico City once, just, a matter of days when I was working for the kibbutz. And it's a very, congested, dirty place. It's not a nice place. Not nice at all. So anyway, a lot of them went to Mexico and they stayed there and they made their fortunes there. Argentina filled up with a lot of Jews. Argentina is a very beautiful country, by the way. If any of you have ever been there, it's really nice. They got mountains in the south near Ushuaia. They've got, beaches. They've got farmland. Buenos Aires is a pretty cool city. It's got a Jewish district. It ain't bad. It's a nice place. I've been in Buenos Aires. It's really pretty okay. I've been in Chile, Santiago. It's nowhere near as nice as Argentina, but it has some appeal to it. Not to me. I like the Argentina better, but so there's all, Jews have been all over the Central South America, and they're still there today. You'll find them in Nicaragua, you'll find them in Belize, you'll find them all over the place. So those nations are going to be destroyed. Now, how can you find a nation that's not ever had the Jews scattered into it? I have no idea. I've thought about that over the years, but how would you know? You know, history's not perfect, and it gets doctored and stuff. So how would you know that there were never any Jews sent there? You know, I don't know. Maybe countries. It'd probably be in Africa, like Ghana. I don't think Antarctica ever had Jews go there. So I mean, but that's not really a country. But I doubt they ever went there. Actually, I'm told Antarctica has beautiful farmland and stuff like that too. I don't know how true it is. So I was never at Antarctica. I was at Ushuaia, which is near there. But I don't know. There might be a season where it's warm or something. I have no idea. I really don't know a lot about Antarctica. I don't think very many of us do. Now, scattered there might mean that the Lord sent them there. It may not mean if a bunch of them just decided on their own to walk over there or go over there and hang out. That doesn't mean the Lord scattered them there. So maybe it would just mean where there's a substantial amount, which would still cover everybody in Europe. And probably, oh, for sure, Canada, Mexico, and America. And the other countries, I don't know. See, we don't have all the little dotting the I's and dashing the T's, crossing the T's. We don't have all that with prophecy. That's a problem. But it's not meant to be that we know everything with precision detail like we would like to, because if we did, the enemies of Jehovah would know those things too, and it would help them. So we don't want that either. We got the haters coming in here to insult us with their flags. You know, it really, really was painful to see that. You know. So, we just gotta watch, you know, and see what develops. I see Turkey moving into position against us and Jordan. That, and we know Iraq and Syria already are. So that covers us there. Saudi Arabia has to get more proactive against us. Edom or Yemen is. And Egypt is beginning to shift more against us. The other countries are not really on our borders directly, but they might come into play, which would be South Sudan and Djibouti and Somalia and Ethiopia and Eritrea and I said Somalia and parts of Kenya and Uganda that would be east of the Nile. So when I name these countries, it just means they're east of the Nile. That part of it belongs to us. And the Nile River goes all the way down to Lake Victoria, and Egypt did have it built out down that far with their pyramids, sphinxes, and other nonsense. They were out that far. So we're not told exactly what countries are going to join in Zechariah 12. We don't know exactly who they are. It's probably going to be the surrounding states and probably going to be the countries that are in Greater Israel that are Arab occupied. A lot of this we're just going to have to hoof it as we go because we don't have the precision details, and that's that. Possibly God will give us new prophecies in the future via the two witnesses or something else, someone else, I don't know. That would enlighten us, maybe, I don't know. I couldn't honestly tell you how long we're going to have to wait for this redemption year. I could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be longer. I just, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that long. But, you know, we got to wait for these countries to move into position, and then when they move into position to make a move, and then it should kick in, I guess. So, anyway, we just got to watch it. When them to lay siege around us, we got to be in siege all over. Jordan's not yet in siege. Syria is, probably in siege position. We can't go in there, they can't come in here. Jordan, we were crossing the border both ways rather freely. Iraq doesn't have a border with us, neither does Turkey. Lebanon's in siege with us. Saudi Arabia is not. They don't actually have a real touching border, but it comes very close by Elat. Egypt, we're not in siege with right now. So we still have some time to go. But Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan are rearing up against us now. So it's moving. You know? Now with the Lord, things can just go like that. You know? There can be an event and boom, everything happens in a day. Remember that. Or they could fall into place one by one over a period of weeks. So, it's not, it's not something that you're able to predict, because if we could predict it and figure it out, then it would be, hold on a second. Stupid letter. Okay, so we're not getting the precision here. You just got to accept it. We're getting the general season. Okay, you're not going to get the day, the hour. You're going to have the season. Now we see the season now. Many of the pieces are in place, and several are not. It's recompenses, which is paid back to the enemy. Look what happened to Gaza and Hamas. You'll see similar going on in these other countries too. So we just gotta chug along here and wait, and it's very hard. Sometimes you feel, because if you're a true believer, you're isolated, you're detached, you don't have good relation with a lot of your family because they think you're crazy. You don't have a lot of friends because they think you're crazy, and stuff like that, and it makes it difficult. And I don't have a remedy for that, but it just pray and stay strong in the Lord. I suffer from it too. I hate what I see in Israel. I see a lot. I don't talk about everything. I see a lot of horrible, abominable things in Israel, and I got to put up with it, and it's very difficult. And the people are really brutally cruel here. The government is unbelievably mean to us. Um, I had to take one package in. I told you about that. I must have had, to get that one package in, it took about 4 days. I must have had 20 emails, 7 or 8 phone calls, and I had to pay incredibly massive fees to them, commissions, service fees. It was ridiculous. And this whole thing was done by design, I'm sure, by the government to make it so impossible, so these courier companies could earn more money and grease the government better. They probably pushed for this. Most countries would give you an exemption on importing goods of at least $600, $900, something like that. Israel gives you $75. A few years ago, the Knesset was passing a law upping the $75 to a much higher, more realistic amount. I don't know what it was. I would guess $300, maybe $500, $600. And all of a sudden, the merchants in Israel, the crooks with the stores that rip us off, formed a retail merchants association and lobbied the Congress, which just means this. And the bill died and never came back. You see what a bunch of rotten people run this country? Now you know why 2/3 are going to get cut off. And now you know why I'm not going to feel sorry for them at all. And if you read Ezekiel 34, the bad shepherds, which is the government and the rabbis, are going to get cut off, and I'm not going to feel sorry for them at all. The way they discriminate against poor people and foreigners and, oh my, messianics. I mean, I will not care one bit what happens to them, not in the least. I welcome them, the Lord dealing with them and taking them off the surface of the earth. I welcome it. They're horrible people. And they make life in Israel so hard so people don't come here. This is Satan getting them to do this with their knowledge and knowing who they're dealing with the unclean spirits. Yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible existence here with them. Scripture says, hold their faces to the grindstone. And God's not going to deliver us until we have redemption. Recompenses means punish them. Oh, they're going to get it. They're going to be gone. They'll be sitting there in the pit crying and moaning and groaning, and I won't care at all. What they have done to people that never did anything bad to them, just for the sake of them hating God, I tell you the truth, I don't care what God does to them. The whole lot of them, it's fine with me. You can't, these are bitter figs. You can't eat them. You can't work with them. You can't have them around you. They're just disgusting, despicable, horrible people, and that's that. And good riddance to them. Good riddance. I don't care. They've made this government $3 tax on gasoline here. $3 a gallon tax only on gasoline. We pay more tax per gallon than you pay for gasoline. The price of our food predominantly is kosher, which is not in the Bible. It's made up bogus thing that the rabbis got to certify the food. And then they ruin the food as a cruel joke to the Jews. The meat is washed and then salted with big chunks of salt for quite a while. Then it's washed again, then it's salted a second time. It makes the meat tough, takes the taste out of it, and destroys it. And it goes up in price probably at least 15%, I think as much as 35%. So we buy non-kosher meat in Israel, which is still clean food. There's no such thing as kosher in our Bible at all. It's not in there. It's a racket. And they work with them on that. I mean, I could go on and on and on. How much they bleed us. You have a 17% VAT tax on imports and sales. So if you buy a shirt in Israel, 17% sales tax, you could think of it as. Okay? On services, they put the 17%. So your accountant, you'd have to pay 17%. That's ridiculous. You know how stupid that is? Cars, regular cars, taxed 100%. Let's say a $40,000 SUV in America would be $80,000 here. A Mercedes, a fine car, BMW, one that's, let's say in America, $60,000 would be $150,000 in it. Well, $60,000 wouldn't be that much of a luxury car. Say $100,000 luxury BMW or Mercedes or Cadillac or something like that in America would be $250,000 in Israel. It kills us how much money it costs to live here. And since I can't sell anything, and I can't go to Patreon and say, oh, you get to see these special secret videos if you pledge $100 a month or something like that. I can't do that. So what I have to do is rely on offerings. And for you guys that don't give offerings one day, you should be in the position of trying to get offerings out of people and see how difficult it is. And when you ask for offerings, oh, you're a Copeland, you're a Jimmy Swaggart, No, I'm not. They sell things to you. That's how they predominantly make their money. They sell things to you. I don't sell anything. I never did. I don't sell any Bible books, any stuff like that. What do I sell? I mean, years ago, my wife tried to do some MLM stuff I mentioned on the channel, but that was very low key, and I don't think I really mentioned it a whole lot, and it went away. Multi-level marketing generally falls apart. For the Satan bot that's dedicated to it will make out with multi-level marketing. The other people aren't going to get anywhere with it. Like trying to get a job as a telemarketer. You want to work in telemarketing on straight commission. Any of these jerks will hire you. Here's a phone, here's a piece of paper, here's a list of people, call them. You think you're going to get anywhere with that? Nah, you burn out. Real estate. If you got a way of, let's say you have a spouse that can support you for a year or 2 years, you could break into real estate, and if you're good at it and you're in a good area, and you might make yourself a nice living with it. But it's going to take you time. Real estate's a slow-moving freight train. So I wish I could tell you exactly when stuff's going to come down, but then if we knew, the enemy would know, and that's not good. So, if the strong man of the house knew when the thief was coming, he'd stop it. So we're going to rob that strong man of his goods, but we're not going to do it on a time frame he can predict. So it's hard right now. It's really hard because you know the good stuff is coming, and you know you got to still put up with the horribleness of this world. And when you understand what's going to happen to you in the age to come with everlasting life and wealth and riches and living in a restored, great, blessed Israel, you know, it makes it even harder to continue plodding on. So pray. I mean, pray the Lord speeds it up as much as He can. You know? Cry out to Him. Tell Him how painful it is. Try. I mean, what's wrong with trying? He's not going to get mad at you. You know? These are tough times, no doubt about it. And I feel it, and I know you feel it. And Satan's got his people bearing down as much as they can. And what it says is, you know, it makes you weary. Satan and his people make us weary. And that's what it is. They just wear you down. You know? That's the reality. It's closing out, and Satan's losing, and he's going to continue to lose. But it's still there. So things for you and the world will never be the same once this happens. So okay, so my name is Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our finances. Pray for our strength, stamina, and endurance. And pray that our animals and pets, which are all rescues, will be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for better videos, that I make better videos. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. And I hope you got something out of this. Please hit the thumbs up, like button, and subscribe if you're interested in getting updates as things develop in these wars in the Middle East. And that's what I got for today. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.